So I'm just going to be presenting on Trickster and the sixth mass extinction in 10 minutes. It's a little bit more of a kind of sober, serious take on the Trickster. It is the success of the growth of the fetus that causes the birth contractions to begin. As Nietzsche said, all pain is birth pain. We could say that it's the appetite of the fetus that causes the womb to no longer be a place of comfortability and nourishment, but in a home, but a trap, so constricting the fetus has no choice but to die as an aquatic being and be reborn as an air-breathing mammal, a child. And so it seems the ultimate paradox, the playing of boundaries, of reversal, is that death and birth are two different sides of the same coin. Destruction in order to make room for creation. Disrupting of order, change. For it seems that it is perspective. From the fetus's perspective, it is dying. It is being annihilated, cast out of Eden, from the source of all nourishment. But from the mother's perspective, she is giving birth. And perhaps at the end of our life, when we are dying, from our perspective, it seems like the end. But from the other side, maybe we're being born. The death-rebirth mystery, the seemingly underlying archetypal pattern of all phenomena, occurs externally, like I just described, in the baby being born, but also intrapsychically, as interior paradigm or worldview shifts. A worldview is a container, a guiding mythos in which we know ourselves and the cosmos. It's analogous to a womb. It holds us, it nourishes us, it is the space in which we get to explore, discover, play, co-create, until we fill it up so much with our imagination and curiosity that it becomes a place of fatal limit. And that is when we have to overcome ourselves in order to break free into something else, which we never know what that is and if it exists until we go through it. We can take this microcosmic example of the death-rebirth process of the baby being born and apply it to the macrocosmic experience of the human species or the collective. We could say that it's the success of the growth of the human species that's causing the birth contractions of the womb of the earth in this current unprecedented ecological crisis that we're going through. We are in what's increasingly known as the sixth mass extinction. Scientists and governments around the world are beginning to acknowledge that not only are we in it, but that the human species seems to be creating it. There have been 5 known mass extinctions on this planet. The last one took place 65 million years ago with the end of the dinosaurs. And that's when the Cenozoic era began, which is the flowering of plants and mammals, and where humans come from. And if you want to know more about the sixth mass extinction, you can go to massextinction.net, and there's hundreds and hundreds of articles from the reports from the UN, BBC, NPR, that goes in and explains in detail what's happening. But what's really fascinating about mass extinctions and destruction and death is that every time it happens, it paves the way for unimaginable complexity and diversity of life. I gave the example of when the dinosaurs went extinct from what we believe an asteroid hitting the Earth and the dust that it kicked up blocked out the sun, and only creatures about below 3 feet were able to survive, including shrew-like animals, which is where they think humans evolved out of. But it also happened when there were single-celled organisms that, populated the entire planet. The thing about single-celled organisms is they never die. They just replicate, until one day something enters the scene and death happens, and so does sex. Sex and death arrive on the evolutionary scene at the exact same time. You can't have one without the other. That's the interesting thing about transformation and evolution. But the reason why scientists and governments say that we're creating the sixth mass extinction is because there's at least 20,000 species that are going extinct every year. 90% of the big fish in the ocean are gone. And a quarter of the world's mammals are expected to be extinct within 30 years, according to the United Nations report on the state of the global environment. So appetite is really big here. The human species consciousness seems to have a very large appetite. It's probably what brought us out of the trees as primates and into the savannas to discover what worlds were beyond the little world that we thought there was, or what took us to the moon. It's that desire that's led us to consuming this unimaginable amount of resources, material goods, and has put us in this lethal trap. We're running out of clean drinking water, healthy fresh food, and access to it, and there's serious sanitation issues. Like we heard earlier, there's 8 billion people on this earth. We seem to be exponentially growing. There was, I think, half as less in the 60s, and that's at least 8 billion bowel movements a day. That's a lot of shit. What do we do with it? Where does it go? So, and something that probably a lot more of us are aware of is global warming. Not only is it the sixth mass extinction, but we're heating the planet. And I thought that was very interesting to think about what we learned today about alchemy and the alembic, the vase. It's like if you see the earth as that container, as that womb, as that place in which the pressure cooker is happening. The heat is being turned up, literally and figuratively. Our libido, our power, our psychic energy is heating up the planet. And what's interesting about it is that we've done it mostly unconsciously. We weren't aware that we were heating the planet or killing 20,000 species a year until the last century, and really over the last several decades, and really not till right now is it becoming increasingly known. And as just like all other organic, natural species on this planet that have done their jobs in creating mass extinction, we've kind of been doing the same thing. So how did we get this ability to heat the planet? If we go back to our Greek roots in the West, and we look at the myth of Prometheus, right? He's the trickster who steals the fire from Mount Olympus in a trick against Zeus and the other gods, and gives humanity consciousness. He teaches us the arts and the sciences. He teaches us fire, how to make fire. And so, and what was interesting was that the gods didn't think we were worthy of this consciousness. But you could say that we began to heat the planet, and that was almost inevitable at the moment that we got this consciousness, or we got this fire, this creativity. So is it possible that the human species is meant to heat the planet? Through technology, which Prometheus also gave us, through the Industrial Revolution, is kind of what brings us to this head point, this lethal trap, with the tools that the gods had and we got. And through this fire and this consciousness, we were given free will, or self-reflective consciousness. Kind of consciousness is traumatic, the ability that we can reflect on ourselves and our experiences and our past, and the potentials of future is where the pain comes in, and where a lot of our innovation and ingenuity and ability to make it through situations by becoming conscious of what's been unconscious. It's that process, that intersection, where new worlds are born, new realities are made and emerged through that space. And it's the heat getting turned up that forces us to take a look and see what we can do to get out of the trap by becoming conscious of what unconsciously got us in the trap. I guess what I'm curious about is what archetype can help us get through this trap. What sacrifices maybe are the gods wanting? It seems as if something is dying, so what is trying to be born? How do we midwife this process? Do we prove the gods right or wrong? Are we worthy of consciousness? And I'll just end with a quote from Jung, and he says, "A mood of universal destruction and renewal has set its mark on our age. This mood makes itself felt everywhere, politically, socially, and philosophically. We are living in what the Greeks called the kairos, the right moment for the metamorphosis of the gods, of the fundamental principles and symbols. This peculiarity of our time, which is certainly not of our conscious choosing, is the expression of the unconscious man, woman, within us who is changing. Coming generations will have to take to account of this momentous transformation if humanity is not to destroy itself through the might of its own technology and science. So much is at stake, and so much depends on the psychological constitution of modern man. Does the individual know that he or she is the make-weight that tips the scales?"